So originally I had planned to make the videos about this project, the 1957 Ford F100 shop truck redo. I wanted to do them where I had all the parts laid out based upon the section. So like the front end and all the chassis, and then the rear end and all that chassis work, and then the engine and the transmission, and like all these different parts based upon themes. And I might still do that later. But one thing you're going to hear in this video is I'm waiting for some arms for my lift so I can lift the frame up because it's 34 inches wide. The way my lift works, my long arms reach, but I have short arms as well in the front, and they don't reach so well. And I also need higher extensions to clear the cab. So a lot of things I got tied up with because I wanted to start with the rear suspension were because of that. And so I bounced around. I moved to the front, did some stuff there, and I did some engine stuff. And so I had to kind of bounce around, and hopefully my arms show up soon, and I'll be able to get back on to doing the rear suspension. But then again, I'm going to have to bounce to the rear suspension. So the nature of how I had to kind of record it is really in real time of how this project's been going. So what I've decided to do is to do a part one of everything up to this point. You can see I've got the engine in, the front suspension's all been welded in and ready to go. The rear suspension still hasn't been done yet. So I'm going to do this video as part one of everything that gets up to this point in time. And then the next part is going to again be in chronological. Hopefully that's going to be me doing the rear end and doing a few other pieces, but we'll see. So yeah, enjoy the video. Hope you like it. Sorry if I do mention in some parts that this is this video, this is that video. They may come out later in that sort of segmented by theme. Really, it's all just this one big part one video of everything that's done up to this point in time. So hope you enjoy it. Check out the comments, or sorry, the details down below in the description. I am going to give some links to any of the products that I mentioned or anything that I did there in terms of where I got my math from or any of those types of things. So check the description down below for any of those resources. Other than that, hope you enjoy the video. Stay safe. See you in the next one. Okay, cool. So in general, just progress today. So this is going to be a video all about the S550 independent rear suspension. So what I've done is I've used my engine hoist with just an engine kind of lift I've got that you can kind of change the balance front and back to get it nice and level. Just kind of mocked it up sort of where it might semi kind of go. Like I said, I'm going to do some 3D scanning to figure out some brackets. It does look like there are some opportunities for bracket mounts that you can just come off of the frame there and there. I've seen some vendors that have them, but to be honest with you, they want like $1,000. Sounds kind of crazy for a set of brackets. And, you know, with the 3D scanning I've got, and I can develop my own in CAD and have my own laser cut, I'm just going to probably make them myself. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. I'm also kind of sizing up what I'm going to look at in terms of ride height and if it makes sense to weld it in instead of bolt it in. So I got to plan that out. But regardless, I got to get my frame nice and level. I'm going to get this carrier nice and level in there, and we'll go from there. I promise the next videos will be, or the next part of these videos will be more about actually how I'm building it versus just kind of showing you sticking it in place. Also did some mock-up inside if you're curious. Those are some seats out of an Audi Q3, I think. And then I've got a center console there that's from a Mustang as well. I'm trying to line up the 6-speed there. I think it's going to work out pretty good. Anyway, so yeah, on to the rest of the video. Okay, so this is like, you know, learning as we go with this S550. One idea I'm going to try is I had it with an engine lift with the chains. I kind of showed that before. I can kind of level it out, which is working pretty good. But my one concern I had is ride height. And I want to make sure I'm setting everything up at the right ride height when I'm thinking about when I'm scanning or designing the brackets. And what I'd like to do is have the rear end level, because I'm going to run the differential in the engine pure level, and versus having a 2 degree like you do with a standard kind of hot rod. And you can do that because it's independent rear suspension. The rear end's not going up and down. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. What I would like to do is I want to put this, I've put the wheels and tires on it. So you kind of saw that with the video. I want to kind of get the rear end itself where the axles are level. So if you can kind of see there, the axles are fairly close to level, but I'm going to put like a level indicator on them. Use the engine lift to get it where I've got it level, get it so that the carrier itself is completely level. Then I'm going to measure, I've got it on dollies to kind of move it around a little bit. Can you see that? So obviously I have to account for that in terms of what ride height is. And then I'd like to bring the truck down to the crossmember for the S550 and get the frame level. So my plan is I want to have a 6-inch ride height. As you can see with these trucks, it's going to move this out of the way. You can see with the truck, the frame goes up and inside, and then you've got this piece that comes down. So I want it to be a 6-inch ride height off of this, not off the frame. And you can see there's quite a bit of a distance there, maybe 2-3 inches, maybe 4. So there is quite a bit of a difference. And so I want the 6-inch to be off basically like what you call a rocker panel on a truck, I guess. So my plan is to get the chassis level, get the truck down to ride height. It means I got to take the front suspension off as well, get everything exactly how I want it with ride height. And then I can start to scan it because I'll know exactly where the brackets are supposed to go, or if I'm going to cut the chassis, the frame, and weld it in permanently, which I may still do because I still think that would probably end up being stronger. I'll probably still have to put gussets and stuff in there anyway, but we're just going to see how it goes. So that's kind of the plan, just kind of give you an idea of what I'm doing here. It may not work. It's my first time doing an S550 in a car, so this might be a how not to do it. It may work great, that you guys can follow it as well. So again, this is learning as we go, so let's see what happens. Okay, we're getting things lined up here. First thing I did is I had to find out the axle center line based on the Ford schematics. So just to let you know, you can go from the center of the rearmost body mount hole. What it is, I ran my level across both sides to the center of both holes. Then I used a laser tape measure to come off of where that measurement was, and it's 35.6. I know it's an oddball measurement to your center line here. And then to confirm it, it's 14.5 to the center line of this body mount that's here for the truck. And so what I did is I marked each side off of that level, and then I ran my level from both points on each side again, drew a line. And then with my level on that line, I confirmed off of this hole on both sides, it was 14.5, and it was. So that should be square off of the blueprint plans. You can do some more triangulated measurement, and I probably will just to confirm that again before I weld anything. Then what I've done is I've got a laser leveler. I've just kind of went off of my engine lift. And so what I did is I had to move things around a bit, and then I lined it up off of both sides. You can see it's lined up with the line on both sides. And then I just used, because I've got this on dollies, I've just used it to kind of line it up so the axles, you can see the laser line is as center. And I've got to do some more measurements, just kind of showing the approach I'm taking. I did do some measurements. I took the measurement of the tire. So there's a tiresize.com that can give you the height of the tire. And then I went on, subtracted from the height of here. And then I went off the cab, which is 16 inches off the ground right now. And shoot, I can't remember this measurement. I think this was 3.5 inches because of, 3.5 because of the dollies I have it on right now. And so if you say 16, 3.5, that's 13 inches. It's way too high. I want to have it so that the cab is 6 inches. So this will have to come down quite a bit. If I grab my tape real quick, just to the lowest point on this cross member, that's only given me not even 2. So what's that, 13 inches minus the 3 difference. So that's 6, so I have to go down. Wow, my math's really good at the moment. Let's go down about 6 inches again. So yeah, that's gonna take me way up. Yeah, way up into notching the frame. And if I up to 5. So yeah, I'm gonna have to weld it in. I'm not gonna be able to do the bolt-on brackets. I could do the brackets that I was thinking of before, but what's gonna happen with that is I'm gonna have it way higher off the ground than what I'm looking for. I do wanna drop it down quite a bit. So it looks like I'm notching. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do some more final measurements. Obviously, I'm a little bit out of it because I can't figure out what 16 minus 3 is. Minus 6. I'm going to do some more measurements to confirm all this first. And then I'm going to just do some scribe lines up on each side to figure out where I start notching. And then just start kind of notching into the frame and bring it up. And then I'm going to bring the frame down, do some more final measurements to make sure I've got the ride height the way that I want before I start tacking it in. So that's kind of my plan. I'm not going to do full welds with all the gusset plates and everything yet until I've got it down off dollies and confirm again I've got the measurements on the ground exactly how I want it, and then I'll do all the full welds. But anyways, so looks like I'm doing a weld-in plan. All right, let me explain what just happened there. So I know just a few seconds ago, you saw me, I was setting up my angles and I was trying to figure out like where I wanted everything, but I was sitting there contemplating about it. And the one thing I have is on the front, these aren't the wheels I'm gonna be running, these are the old wheels, but I have it on dollies. And then I was getting it set up using the engine hoist and everything on the actual like S550 rear end. I was working with that. And I had it on dollies and I was doing some measurements. Then I just realized, you know what, I'm adding so many variables that it's probably not gonna come out right in the end. And I remembered, hey, look, I have a hoist. So what I'm gonna do, and the reason why I moved it, is I'm gonna be leveling it on my two-post hoist, which takes out any inconsistencies with the level of my floor, because no garage floor is perfectly level. Mine is slightly slanted, so all the water goes outside. So I'm going to level it on the hoist is my plan. And then I'm going to wheel the S550 underneath. And then I can set it up where I want it ride height. And then if I need to cut the frame or anything, I can lift it up, do my cuts, bring it back down, lift it up, bring it back down, blah, 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 blah. What I'm also going to do when I do that, I'm going to pull the front wheels off and everything so I can get full ground clearance. I'm going to bring it down and set it to where I think I want my ride height at 6 inches, see what it looks like with nothing underneath, no rear end, nothing. And if I like that, or I adjust it 7, 8, wherever I want to kind of go, figure that out first, what I would like visually. And then, yeah, like I said, I can put the S550, I'll make sure all the axles and everything are flat, right? So you don't want them on an angle because then you have to get crazy with cambers and stuff to deal with the adjustment. And it's just harder on the CV joints and stuff. So then I can set that up, put it on the ground where I want it, put it on some stands, get it all nice, get it centered with my axle lines. And then, like I said, just use my hoist up and down until I get it to where I want my ride height, weld it in there, everything's nice and flat, and then I can start tacking it in place. Then I can go to the front. The front, I can, with the wheels off and everything, I can pull the old coils out, start swapping over the different suspension, getting that ready for coilovers in the front. So I just figured this is a much better approach. I can get it nice and level on the hoist. Anyways, use the tools you've got. As you probably saw in the last video, I couldn't even do simple math. So when I slept on it, that's when I thought, what the hell am I doing at this? So anyway, here we are. One thing is I got my lift from Lift King. It's a great lift, 2-post lift. You go on the video. It's one of the ones that you can bolt and unbolt in the ground, which is great because my shop is 30 by 30, which is fantastic, but a permanent post in the way, 2 posts would be a pain, especially when you have to knock bodies apart. You would have seen that earlier. I had the whole shop open. It makes it a lot easier. But the one thing is with this lift is you get a short arm and a long arm. So you get the long arm and a short arm. The idea is that you use the short arm for the front. The problem is, and I ran into this with my 32, is these chassis on these old things are really narrow. This is only 34 inches wide. So what happens is the long arm in the back, you can see no problem. You got lots of extension, but then you end this problem in the front where the short arm is almost straight out to reach the same distance. And then what you end up with is this cantilever kind of a problem. Especially in this case right now, I've got more weight on the front with the tires and everything in there. And I do not want this flipping off of a hoist. So I've reached out to Lift King. I'm going to get another pair of longer arms for the front so I can have the same length. And then I can extend it out and make the proper sort of triangle and get some proper support on it. So unfortunately, they're in Calgary. I'm in Vancouver, so not that far away. They ship really quick. They're great guys to work with. Nothing but good things to say about them. I have no discounts or promos or anything of that I'm saying with that, but I've worked with them before. I had an issue with a motor. I was supposed to get a 220. They ended up sending me a 120. I didn't notice it, wired it up and blew it. They just sent me a replacement. So they're really good to work with. So hopefully I get the arms quick. It is Friday, so unfortunately there's that. Hopefully I get them by Monday or Tuesday, but it looks like this weekend's going to be a little bit out of commission until I get those arms. Unfortunately, it is what it is. I'll do some cleanup. I'll do some other stuff around here, but when this video continues back, I'll be back showing you how I can get it up on the lift and get things sorted out. For you, it's going to be instantaneous. For me, it's going to be 3 or 4 days. Anyways, I'll see you in a little bit. So why did I put a disclaimer in front of this? Because one thing, to be honest, I wasn't even sure if I was going to include this in this video, because this is kind of like what I think is one of the most dangerous things when you're dealing with suspension, and why adjustable coilovers are so great in my view. So when you have a spring, here I'm going to go grab the spring because I took out one side already, and I'm going to do the filming of the other side so you can see it. But here's what a coil spring looks like, right? And to get them in, to get them out, you have to compress them to get them in. So when you're doing the spindles or putting anything together, so if you see right there, you can see there's the coil spring right there. So you have to compress them to get them out or compress them to get them in. And so you have to use these coil spring compressors. And why this can be a bit of a dangerous thing is if the coil spring compressor lets go, there is a ton of force that's in there and the spring can shoot out. And I'm sure you could probably sit there on YouTube where they've let go. In some really old cars, when people are really nervous about it, they'll just cut them with a torch before they even take them out, let them pop, and they'll just pull out the broken spring because they don't even want to deal with it. I use these ones. I've liked these before. I use these on the Porsche. They have these sort of push locks. Gotta see. The one keeps wanting to fall on it. There you go. So they have these pins that you kind of push and it locks on the spring. So you can kind of see it there, like that. Holy smokes, man. Get out of the way. There you go. So you can kind of see this pushes and then locks around the spring. And so that provides you with a bit more kind of security that's not going to pop off. Unfortunately, on the truck, those don't fit. So I got to use these old school ones like this. Okay? And so you put 2 on at least. Otherwise, the spring will kind of go on an angle and can pop off. So you want to have one as much on one side the other as you can. And you can kind of compress both back and forth to get the spring to compress. And then you can take it off. But like I said, the reason why I put a disclaimer is this is totally considered entertainment, not education. Don't necessarily do it my way. Go to a professional for doing it yourself, blah, blah, blah. Because like I said, they can let go. You can't get quite hurt. You'll see I'll put a jack underneath the lower control arm. The way I'm actually going to take it out is not going to be disconnecting the spindle. I'm actually going to be disconnecting the upper control arm. The idea being is that you can see that there's an upper mount here, right? That the spring is being held in and then it pushes on the bottom. So the idea being is if it was to let go, it would push the lower control arm down. So by putting a jack under there while I'm doing it after it's compressed, I'll take the upper control arm off. The worst thing it would do is push down on the jack. It's not going to push the frame up, obviously, it's too much weight, and it's not going to smack me in the face. Then when you feel it's secure and you're okay to go, I can lower the jack down. The whole thing with the spindles and the lower control arm will swing down. I can pull the spring out. And then after that, I can just take the lower control arm off and the whole thing's off. That's the plan. So like I said, you should do this with a professional and not on your own. This is just for entertainment. Here you go. so that's the whole front end stripped. You might ask, why do you use like pneumatic tools sometimes and hand tools other times? You can just whiz it off. When I'm doing stuff like that, I'm concerned about if something could let go. I sometimes like to use hand tools. Like so for example, I'm taking off the bolts on the upper control arms there. If there was some tension, the spring wasn't collapsed enough, something was going on, I'd feel it right away. It would start to pull, and the nuts are already on there, so it can only go so far. I can correct it and then make the adjustments and then go back to doing it. So that's why I like to do some things by hand. You could just whiz it off, I guess, if you want. Obviously, it'd be a lot easier. Wouldn't be as out of breath as maybe I am right now. Anyways, that's why I sometimes use hand tools. I just prefer to feel it, go easy on it, make sure I'm doing it right, and nothing's going to hit me in the head. So anyways, it's all stripped. So now I'm going to start cutting off the engine mount brackets. I'm actually taking off these the mounts for the top suspension, where the shock mounts to, which is like standard kind of Mustang 2 with a coil. So I'm going to cut those off. I'm changing everything to be a different type of coilover setup, which should be pretty cool. I'm going to try and take my time to cut these off. They could be useful for somebody who's doing a similar project, maybe wants to use them again. So yeah, I'm going to take my time, try to cut them off as nice as I can, so I can keep them for somebody to sell them to somebody. And then, I'm going to keep the lower cross member on though and go from there. So anyways, let's keep going. Okay, so why am I all armored up today? I did end up cutting the front suspension off with my, it's called a air cutter. People call them a plasma cutter, whatever. So I did torch them off. You end up with some, pretty rough kind of cuts after you do that. And then some extra material, which I kind of expected from the crossmember and the mounts and stuff. So I had to grind all that off and clean it up before I can start mocking up kind of where the frame goes, so you can sort of see it there. So you can see where I've cleaned it all up on each side. I'll show you in a sec. The one thing I use for this is I use these flap discs. This is a 60 grit flap disc. You can get them on Amazon or wherever now. It used to be a little harder to get, but now they're everywhere. Why do I use those instead of a grinding disc? So it's personal preference. I prefer those flap discs. I control how much material can come off, so I don't get into where I don't want to take material off, versus a grinder can go pretty quick. The other thing is that when I'm doing anything like long-term grinding, I've had 2 grinding discs let go, and with a guard and everything, I had to, wearing my sort of welding protecting pants, jeans underneath, I had a disc break and go through both of those and into my inner thigh. So they are pretty dangerous when they let go. They're going about 10,000 RPM. So if they let go pretty good. I've never had an issue with the flap discs. You might have a piece break off, like a piece of the sanding paper that's in there, but I have not had a disc let go. So for 2 reasons, I find them safer. Also, I just more control. So that's what I prefer. You can do whatever you want. The thing is that for me, they cost about $20 for 10. I change them all the time because you'll find that they get inefficient, and it just takes a lot longer to get it off. You get more heat into the area you're doing, and it just takes a long time. So if you've got a lot to do and you value your time and you don't feel like grinding for a long time, just change them more often. There's still life left in them, but whatever, it's your call. I went through 15 discs, so about $30 worth of discs to do both sides. But you can sort of see the result here. There you go. So that's the outside. The top, there was a plate here where the mount came on for the top spring. So I cut it off and left that plate on. So I'm gonna have to weld this line that's there. And then I'll clean all that up. There is a bit of weld there on the top. You can probably see that I have to fill in and then just clean up. So there's just some, general welding and cleaning up I have to do. I need to get some gas from my MIG welder. My TIG's good, but I'm going to use a MIG for this, so I got to fill that up. I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm still waiting for my longer arms to the front from Lifting King to come in. If you see the rear IRS, you'll see I mentioned that I decided to put it on the lift to get my level and do the independent rear suspension. I realized the front arms are too short for these narrow frames in these old trucks, so he's going to get me a set of longer arms. I don't know when that's going to be. I hope there's a few days. He was on vacation, so I'll find out next week. But what I might do is get my level, the height I want using my jack stands, and get it level on jack stands. And that'll be good enough for me to get the crossmember done in the front. The rear is a little bit more tricky because I got to lift it up and down all the time to do notching, so I don't have that problem in the front. So I'm thinking I'm going to do that in the front is my plan. So the rest of this video, you'll see me starting to line up the front crossmember where I want, getting my ride height set, finding where my control arms can go, my upper mounts have to go. It's going to figure a lot of things out that I have to start tacking in. So anyway, that's why I'm all armored up today. That's what I've been doing. Sorry there was no video of me actually doing the grinding. It throws sparks and dust everywhere, and just didn't want to subject my phone to that damage. Sorry. Anyways, it's just about me sitting there grinding a lot. But I'll promise moving forward, you're going to get more stuff, especially when we start getting into lining it up and doing some welding. Anyways, let's get to the next part. So before I get too crazy on welding, I got to figure out what I want to do, some ride height. So I'm just playing with what the ride height looks like. So I'm just going to show you what I've done. All right, so that's just me kind of mocking it in place. The tires I'm going to choose are going to be a little bit taller, so I'm thinking about compensating for that. But I've got it in a pretty nice spot. I'm thinking about going a little lower. I've got about a 9-inch ride height right now. I was shooting for 6, but a 3-inch drop from here might be a little bit too much. Anyway, I can try and see if I can play with it. But when you look at, I just have to ignore the actual track width spacing right now. I don't have spacers or anything in it. I mean, it's got a pretty nice look to it the way it is at this kind of a rake. I've got it on a 2 degree. I'll try to back up here. I'm going to show you the whole where I've got it right now. I've got it on a 2 degree downwards rake slope, which is kind of where I think I'll actually end up. It'll look the best. But, I mean, it looks pretty sweet. Anyway, maybe I'll try a little lower. I want to do a separate video when I'm doing the front end on something that I'm going to develop to help me when I'm doing my fabrication. So first off, you can see I'm kind of getting things set up where I want my ride height. You can see there I've got it pretty much where I think it's going to look pretty good. I could go lower, but the thing is it's a truck. I was going to go for 6 inches. I've got about almost 9, I guess, maybe 8.5 on ride height. The thing is that with a car, like when it's a low sports car, you kind of like get down, drop your butt into the car when you're getting in. But with a truck like this, you kind of step up and into the seat. And so if you look at where I'm at now, just me standing, I'm about 5'11". You can see the height was already here. I'm going to have to duck down to get in. If I go much lower, I'm going to have to kind of do this weird kind of thing. So I'm thinking that's probably going to be good enough. Sorry about the roundy, but. And the tires I'm going to use are going to be a little bit higher profile than this. So, it's nice to get the fender right here, right even with the lip of the where the tire meets on the bead, right at the rim. But I like that. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to leave it there. Anyways, what this video is about is I have one of these weld together cross members, Mustang 2 cross members. That's a 16.5-inch wheelbase one. The one that I had in there, I cut out. It was from Total Cost Involved. Nothing wrong with them. Just I'm doing this different, going coilovers instead of coils, and changing ride height and everything else. And so I wanted to change some of the geometry. So I cut the old one out, cleaned it all up, and I happen to have this one sitting here. So I decided to use it. I'll send links for everything I use. But anyways, I wanted to talk about a bit of math. So I'm trying to figure out what I was going to use for where I got to put the crossmember into the chassis. And so I figured it out, and I'm going to go through some of the math here in a second. But basically, it's 9 and a bit inches off the ground is where you need the center line of where the bolt goes through. This is, I'm just lining this up for welding, but this is where the bolt goes through that has the lower control arm mount. And I figured that out because I use the size of the tires that I'm going to be using with the tire size calculator, and I'll post a link for that. And with the tire size calculator, you can find the midpoint of where the rim is going to be. I also found some information on the Mustang 2 geometry of where I'm using their hubs on mine, but regardless, I'm using a stock ride height hub that I had from Classic Performance. So there's some information that gives you where the lower control arm mount hole is in relation to the center line of the spindle when the control arm is flat, and that's what I want it to be at ride height, is lower control arm flat. So from that, you're able to extrapolate how far down from the center point of the rim and the tire where the lower control arm hole is supposed to be. So that's going to give you from the ground to that lower control arm hole where it's going to be when you mount it in the frame. Okay, that's cool. Now you got to figure out, based upon where you have the ride height of the vehicle you want, you have to figure out from the bottom of the frame down where that is at, and then you need to subtract that and cut. So you'll see that there's these flanges here, right? And so you have to cut down into the flange to notch it out to fit the frame, and then that's where you weld it all together. So what I could do with it is I could have it here at ride height, do some measurements, kind of try to figure it out, cut, place it, blah, blah, blah. Then I have to figure out, hold it with, say, jack stands, make sure it's all level, everything's in place in my center lines, and then tack it in. But what I was thinking of doing is, I'm going to take some measurements, I'm going to build some stands and 3D print them that are actually going to go into the hole and have feet on the bottom at the height that I need on both sides, so that I can actually just have it freestanding off those stands. And then, I can shim underneath those stands or anything and kind of get it so it's wherever I want it, perfectly level. Always and in my center line, and then it's held in place, and then I can just do my tack welds there, confirm everything one more time, and then do my final weld. So it just helps me kind of hold it in place versus trying to use jack stands and everything else. So that's my idea. So this video specifically is about, I'm going to go over the math again, just to show you what my measurements are, how I did it. Then I'm going to go over showing you what I did in terms of designing the stands, and then show you what the stands look like and see how it works, and then we'll go back to just the fabrication stuff. Anyways, that's what it's about. So this part's about the math. So I'm going to just show you a sheet instead of my face. So what I'm going with is I'm going with a 255 40/19 tire. And if you look at the tire size calculation, that's going to give you a total height of 27 inches. So to get the midpoint of where the center of the rim and everything in the tire is going to be, you divide it by half. So that's 13.5 inches from the ground to the center point. So based upon the frame geometry I found on the Mustang 2, which I'm going to show you now for a brief second, you can see that the distance between the bottom hole to the middle of the spindle is 4 1/8. Now, if you kind of look at the measurements, it kind of goes up, and then it says account for another, that's to the bottom of the spindle, and another 1/4 inch to actually get the center line. So that's why it ends up being 4 1/8. So anyways, what we do is we take 13.5, which was the top to the middle of the wheel and the tire, and we subtract from that the 4 1/8, and we end up with 9 3/8. So based upon my setup, I'm going to have 9 3/8 from the ground up to the lower hole for the control arm on the cross member. So based on all the measurements we have, this is what we've kind of come up with. You can see the pin here, where that's going to be the pin that goes into the bottom hole of the cross member. This is a bit of a support just to hold up some weight, because I think that'll just snap off under the weight. So I just put a support here. And then this is a base. What I did is this is 1/2 of the distance of half of the cross member. So when I have two of them together, they'll be right close together, and that'll kind of match up. I did this at 1/2 inch thick. Not too sure if that's going to be strong enough. We'll find out to see if it snaps. I'll have to do a different thickness or a different support. But that's the first version. So going to give that a print and see how it comes out. So this is the first iteration I came up with for a stand. But what I was thinking of, I get where I was thinking of having like an alignment pin, but and thinking about, I put it in there and I could hear it creaking a bit, like I think it's going to break, even though it's got this like ledge support that's here. I'm going to change another version. I'm just going to put a hole in, because I just figured, you know what, I can run the main bolt right through both sides as well. And then I don't have to worry about it breaking. And the support will be a lot better with the bolt going through it. So I'm going to redo the version, take off this stem, put a hole instead, run the bolt through, and then I'll have a stand to hold it up exactly at the height I need. Anyways, so I'm going to go back to the CAD, and then I'm going to do a 3D print, and I'll come back. All right, you can kind of see how I've used the feet to get the height I wanted off the bottom for the lower bar. So I'm just kind of getting it in place. I got to do my lineup with the laser, but otherwise, kind of worked as a great concept. Anyway, so yeah, that's it about the math and how I kind of built some feet. Now I'm just going to do some welding in and get the front end lined up. All right, quick little progress update of where we are with the Mustang 2. So you can see I've got it all fabbed in. I've done the majority of the finishing welds in place. So you should have seen there some where I was laser leveling exactly where I want the center axle to be. I measured off both measuring points. Then I went straight across on both sides. Then I found the true center of the car, measuring multiple places in between the frame width. So I got the true center. Then I made sure I had everything lined up in place there. And then it's just a matter of following the measurements off of the Welder Series kit of where everything needs to go for measurements. Got to cut, fit, everything else. Tack in place till you're happy. Make sure everything was level across. So on the two upper A supports, I made sure that they were level across. Not level, they're supposed to be a 4-degree back. I mean, from side to side, at the top peaks are level and the lower peaks are level, which means that I've got everything from side to side the same. So yeah, no, it's looking pretty good. I've got control arms in, I've got spindles in. You can see on this side here, I just got the brake rotor on. There's no caliper on there, but I'm really liking the fitment. I'm liking where it's at. You can see the tire's just slightly off the ground. That's because I've set it up for a higher tire profile than the one that's on the rim. But yeah, then I've got some, again, from Welder Series. They have some, you might be able to see them in there. There's basically allows you to set a placeholder for your coilovers based on your measurements you've got. And that gives you like a solid way to kind of set the vehicle up, move it around if you had to. I have to figure out the power steering rack, where that's going to go. There's some C-notch kind of pieces I've got like that. So that's just because you have to account for lowering the car. I actually have noticed that the control arms are quite close to the frame. So see if you can see here. Sorry for all the camera movement, but I'm walking around the shop. I haven't cleaned it yet. So yeah, you can see here, control arms are fairly close. I'm gonna calculate what the full travel is. I think I'm gonna end up notching these as well on both sides just to be safe. I have lowered this quite a bit, so that's sort of to be expected. A little bit more work, but my plan is this is good enough for me to call the front end finished. I'm gonna put the other spindle and the other wheel and tire on. Then I can actually move the car in dollies again. I've heard from Lift King, as the guy who got my lift from. He was able to get me some longer front arms. Thanks very much. Huge shout out to those guys. No pay promotion for that. They're just really solid guys out of Calgary. So that and some extensions so I can clear the cab. That's going to allow me to get the frame on my lift at the 2-degree angle that I'm going to actually go for. And then I can set my ride height just by using the lift up and down. I'm going to take the rear end. I know this is more of a front end video, but I'm going to take the rear end, put it in place, and then it allows me to just kind of lift it up, make the cuts I've got to make, bring it down, lift it up, bring it down. I am going to be welding that in place just for structural rigidity and just to make it work good. Anyways, so this is where we're at. I think it's looking pretty cool. I'm really happy with the progress. I'm going to do one last bit to close this video off because it's just about the front end. Once I got the other wheels on, just so you can see what it looks like. And then that's it. Final frame welding. Once I got everything set up the way I want and it's all done front and rear, I'm stripping the whole cab off and everything off. Oh, and sorry, the engine mounts. I'm stripping everything off and then I'll be rotating the frame and getting every weld underneath and everywhere else. I just like to weld them when it's up on its side and instead of welding upside down. It's kind of difficult. So yeah, I just did some nice welds everywhere and that'll button it up. So anyways, yeah, Mustang 2 coming along. All right, on to the next part. Got to get the engine and transmission mounted. I'm not going to be fully installing it, of course, because this is just about getting my chassis prepped so I can get everything stripped and off to the blaster, and then the chassis is going to get powder coated and all the components. But first, you got to figure out where the engine's going to go, and you got to weld in your motor mounts. So let me just show you a few things that I've done to the motor, and I'll be doing it to the other side, and then I'll show you the video as it actually goes into the chassis. So I got these motor mounts here. These are again from Welder Series. They fit really well. It's obviously a laser cut piece, really accurate, bolts nicely into 3 mounting points here of where the original mounting and motor mounts used to go. The other thing is that I've taken the exhaust manifolds off and I am going to be taping these up just to save any debris that might get in there. I'm not doing any grinding or welding anything right now, but you never know. It's always good to just tape them off to keep any, even just moisture or anything from getting into the cylinders. So that's what I've got now on the motor mount side. In terms of the exhaust manifolds, I've had these sitting for a while hanging here. These are a long tube header for the Coyote, and I'm hoping to use these. It'd be great. The sound would be great. Performance would be great. I've actually seen some really amazing numbers when it comes to performance coming off of these, but I won't know until I get the motor actually in the chassis and I can see if I can even fit these. So that's pending, but that's also why I took the exhaust manifolds off, so I could try to see if I could fit these long tubes while it's in there. Transmission I'm using is the MT82, which actually came out of this 2014 Mustang. There's a lot of debates on these engines, these transmissions. Most people think they're kind of junk. They do have a failure that happens with them. I think it's the second gear or third gear that ends up kind of going on them. Anyways, that's what I've got for now. I'm going to install it. There is ways that you can actually upgrade it and repair it, but for now I'm going to try it. My only concern is how long it's going to be and see where it comes into the interior. This is obviously an original console, and I've just kind of plopped it in there. Could still go back a few inches, but that's kind of where the shifter is. I think it should go back a little bit just for comfort of driving, but I'm going to have to see. What I'm going to have to do when we do put the motor in is I am going to have to pull the seats out of the truck, and there's a plate that you can take off the bottom. It's going to take the carpet out, and there's a plate that you can come off, and you can sort of see how everything's lining up. So I do need to do that as well. But anyways, for now, I'm just trying to prep the engine, get the motor mounts on, take the exhaust manifolds off, and then bring the engine off of the stand, attach the transmission, and then we're ready to move it into place. Just a quick note, you would have seen from previous videos, the Mustang 2 suspension is in. It is on its own wheels. I'm using those braces there for now in the place of the coilovers. I was waiting for them to come in. It's a little bit lower than I actually going to have it. Just where it is on that placeholder for the coilovers isn't exactly where I want. So it is a bit lower than I want. But anyways, that's what she came out like. So looks like there's lots of room to fit that in there. I do need to put the steering rack on because I just want to make sure I got everything good with clearances. The oil pan on the Coyote is a rear sump oil pan, which is great. That's going to clear the crossmember and everything really well. I hope. I'll find out when I get in there. Anyways, so I'm going to prep the other side, put some tape on the holes, and then get it ready to put the transmission mounted onto it so I can start looking at prepping into the truck and figuring out where the motor mounts are going to go and weld those in place. So one thing I did mention earlier was the need to do C-notches. And I just have the power steering rack just kind of put in place here for when I do the Coyote installation. I can sort of see what the clearance is like, but you can already see it's hitting the frame, and that's even with the arms bent down. So that's where the C-notch is. So I just marked it. I'm going to be doing it later when I get the chassis stripped. It's easier for me when I get the frame up in the air and I can rotate it and get some really good welds on it. So I just wanted to mark it where I'm going to do it. So I'll be doing it later when I do that chassis modification to clear it. But that's why you got to C-notch it. If you're going to drop it down, everything comes up, starts hitting the frames. I'm even going to do some C-notches on my control arms as well, just to make sure I've got lots of clearance all around in case there's any major suspension travel. But anyway, I wanted to show you why the C-notches are required when it definitely comes to how you do the rack. Little quick status update on the engine. I've put the transmission together. I haven't replaced the flywheel and the clutch or anything yet. I'm going to get that later. I'm just going to bolt it up so I can get into mock-in. I got these things called stiffers, which is a cross member. It's a pretty nice looking piece. Again, no promotion or anything, just what I chose to use. It's actually a kit for the 48 to 52 F1, F2, and 67 to 79 is what they show. But they actually have it ordered as a 48 to 79 actually for that cross member. For the MT82 and the 6R80 and the 10R80 as well. So pretty much all the Mustang transmissions, automatics and manuals. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's just like a simple brackets that you can bolt onto each side of the frame. And then, you've got some bushings and stuff. This bolts onto the back of the transmission in the factory holes. I'm going to order some shorter bolts. So the original support looks like this. So the bolts are quite long, obviously, for the support. I've just removed it entirely. You could take the bottom bracket off, but then you've got this kind of rubber thing on the bottom. Don't think it'll look really good. So I'm just going to get some shorter bolts with the same thread pitch. And then should be bolts right on the back of here. Right there. Yeah. So I'm going to get that sorted out. One thing I've noticed is The truck is quite low, which I want. So low that I can't actually get my engine hoist underneath of it. I am going to have to remove the bumper. Well, eventually that was going to happen anyway, so I'm going to take it off, but I still think I'm going to end up with a clearance issue even with the bumper off. So I am still waiting on the lift arms. That's what's holding me up from the rear end, why I switched to the front end. So I'm going to take the bumper off, see if I can get my clearance I'm looking for. If I can, then I'll just keep going ahead and doing it. If not, hopefully my front arms come in, I can get on the hoist, and then that allows me to lift it up, get my clearance, I can get my engine and everything in, I can lift it up even higher, and I can get my cross member in, which I'm going to have to do anyway. So there's only so far I can really go with this until I get my arms. So anyways, yeah, that's where we're at. Keep on going. We'll do a video as I'm putting it in, so it's not just me jabbering the whole time. All right. Okay, so a little bit of a problem. What I found out is that the oil pan is actually hitting the cross member, and you can see where I've got it sort of marked out with some math there. To get it down to where I need it to go down to, the cross member is just in the way. Probably systemic of me lowering the truck so much and having, bringing the cross member up to get the lower control arms where I want them. The cross member's in the way. So I have designed a support. I'm actually going to just notch it right out. So I'm going to have a drop down the middle. I have enough ground clearance to get away with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up my CNC table, do a little video of that while it's cutting it, and cut out some plates. And then I'm going to make a boxing that goes underneath the bottom. I'll weld that into place on the bottom before I make my cuts, so I don't have anything twist or move on me. It all stays nice and straight. And then that'll give me enough support for the cross member still, while also giving me a 2 3/4 drop amount that I can go down. I only need about 2 inches, but I'll give myself some extra clearance. So then I should be able to get it in, get it nice and tight to the power steering rack there. It fits up kind of in the notch of the oil pan. And then it will get it lower. Right now when I was getting it in, it was way too high, and the transmission was actually hitting the bottom of the cab. It's just, everything was too high. It needs to come down a couple inches. I did look at doing a low profile oil pan. They do exist. They're pretty expensive. They're like $400 US, which is pretty crazy for an oil pan, but it is what it is. Anyways, I did a cardboard cutout template to see if it would work, and it really didn't give me enough clearance either. So that wasn't an answer for my application. I am going to do some firewall modifications as well. I do need to clean it up. There are some pretty nasty welds on there from before, and I do want to clean that up, but that actually isn't the issue. It has to go down. That's my problem right now. So answer that first, get it down, see what my clearance are like. And then I'm going to do the firewall mods probably after everything gets sandblasted. So it's nice clean steel I'm dealing with, not with paint and everything else causing problems. So I'm going to leave the firewall modifications for later. Right now, my main goal is to get this to a point where I want it, and then get my engine mounts in and welded. So I've got that done, and my cross member for my transmission sorted out. That's my goal right now. So anyways, yeah, let's fire up the CNC and see that go.
Okay, so we just finished the support I've designed for the bottom of the cross member, which is going to allow me to notch it down and get 2 3/4 inch clearance. I only need 2, but like I said, I want to just account for a wee bit more. So I'm gonna weld that to the bottom, and then I can notch the top. And I've got some plates here to fill in the angle cuts I'm going to do on the top of the bracket. But anyway, I'll show you how it goes on. All right, with the notch complete, you can see I'm able to place the engine a lot lower. So see if I can get down there and show you what it looks like. You can sort of see the notch where it clears the oil pan down low there. And it does clear the rack. Now there is that low profile oil pan which allowed me to go a little lower, but I don't mind where it's at. My other concern I've got right now is the shifter placement, and I might have to get creative there, so let me show you where I'm at with that. So it's obviously just sort of mocked up in place. I've lined the top alignment bolt there, and I haven't actually bolted anything together to give you a pretty good idea. My problem is this is pretty far forward, so if you were driving the car, I mean, you would not be in an ideal shifting location. Also, from the center here to the back is about 24 inches. And when I measured the console, that's the original Mustang console, from the center to the back is 26 inches. I could modify the console, of course, but that's not really my concern. The concern is I don't really like the placement here. I'm going to do some searching to see if I can get, maybe somebody else has come up with a relocation option here. It looks like this bracket here on the bottom could be shortened to get me a couple more inches up, and then therefore the arm that's there could be shortened 2 inches to effectively keep everything in the same geometry for your shifting pattern. I don't know if that will completely screw it up. I think the throw is going to become quite short. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm going to do some searching first before I start cutting anything. Maybe, like I said, somebody's come up with a mounting bracket and I can use that. But that's my current concern. You can also see the height here. I'll actually try and show you underneath the car instead. You can see the height there for where the transmission comes out. It's going to have a issue with clearance. So I do need to cut the floor, obviously, all the way back to the shifter. I'm going to weld in the original panel, maybe just have a access panel down the center that's a little bit tighter for what I'm going to end up with. And then I have to fabricate something to mount the pedal to. But let me show you why I'm not too concerned about how high up it is. If you can sort of see there, and I'm sorry, it's in the back of my junk. The way the drive shaft goes, it's actually got 2 unions. So it's got where it mounts the transmission, and that's got a union there, and then it goes all the way back to the rear drive shaft. So, and then there's a mount that kind of would bolt up to the frame. So that will take that angle, and then that can go back to the rear end. So I'm okay with that, and I can cut the clearance in the floor to make it work. It's just the shifter placement I've got an issue with. I haven't set up my angles yet. I have to measure the angle of my frame is currently at the moment, figure out the angle I need for the transmission, and then I can start looking at doing the mounts down for the motor mounts. But all in all, we've got pretty good clearance. I'm happy with how the notch came out. Looks pretty nice in there. The front radiator support you'll see here, may not still use this radiator, but you can see these brackets here. When you get down, it's pretty even the front of this bracket. The hole's about there with what the clearance is, and then you've got like another inch or so. So if we look at like where I'm at here, I mean, I'll probably just put that whole thing on to be 100% sure, but this is the mount point. So you're pretty much about here is where the radiator is, give or take. And you can see I've got tons of clearance there back to the engine. You typically want the engine to be closer to your center of gravity towards the back as much as you can. So that's fine, I think, with good placement there. Lots of clearance here to the firewall, which is good. I've actually seen people push up even closer to the firewall. Again, that still messes up my mount position for my shifter, so that even makes it worse. I think I've got good clearance here in terms of what I'm going to need for my brake. I'm going to be doing a hydro boost, so should be enough clearance there for the hydro boost setup. If that doesn't work, I'm going to have to do an under dash pedal setup, but definitely a lot of place for the clutch cylinder, slave cylinder. So yeah, I think it's coming along pretty good. Anyway, that's just a quick update. I think the next thing I'm going to do is do some research for the shifter to make sure before I start tacking anything in. If I can find a solution for that, I'm going to start tacking in the motor mounts, and looks like it's going to get a new hard here pretty soon. It's really cool. All right, quick little update. It's in there, no engine hoist, as you can see.
So I do have the motor mounts welded in enough to hold the motor. I want to finish them up, make them look really nice and everything. But all my finish welding I'm going to do after I get everything blown apart, stripped, that I just have the chassis, and then I can go to town on my finish welding. But I got it in there strong enough, obviously, to support the engine. I do have the transmission still on a jack stand in the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just actually going to put a 2x4 across the inside of the frame just to hold some weight off the transmission. Theoretically speaking, with the mounts, it should be able to hold the weight anyway. But that being said, better safe than sorry. I'm just going to put a board on there for now because I'm waiting for my arms to come in for my hoist. I know I've said that a few times in these videos, but once they come in, I'm going to be able to lift it up, and then I can do the cross member properly while it's up in the air. So I can support my transmission with a jack, get it in the position I want, make sure my angle is still 2 degrees how I want it. And then I can start figuring out where my crossbar is going to go and get those all drilled and put in place. And then it's all held properly the way I want. But anyways, no, it's come along pretty good. So from here, it looks like my cab clearances is good. I can get the top bolts on there for when I have to change the clutch on the transmission. All the bottom bolts are easily accessible. I ordered a shifter that will relocate it 6.5 inches forward towards the firewall, which is perfect for what I want. The factory console is going to fit. I can shift it without having to shift like behind me like this. It would be kind of silly. So anyways, that's all sorted. So that's on the way. I don't need it right now, obviously, but I wanted to make sure I got it. They also had a sale on, so what the heck. I'll put the link somewhere in all the stuff that I got, and that'll be one of them. I can't remember the name, KMWS or something. Anyways, whatever. I'll put the link down below. So yeah, no, things are coming along pretty good. I actually like the progress I've made so far. At this point in time, I'm running out of things to do without my my arms. Oh, one thing that's really cool. These long tube headers I had showed before that I had hanging up, they fit both sides. It's going to be awesome. I might have to do some creative stuff with getting my steering linkage to fit to the rack, but it looked like I can get that to work as well. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah, that would be pretty cool. It's going to sound awesome, get better performance on the long tube headers, and they just look really cool, especially on a hot rod. So anyways, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for now. I think the next part of this video, if my arms are in, you'll see me doing the crossmember. And of course, after the crossmember is done, then we're good to start doing the rear end, like I've been waiting for a while. And once I have the rear end all fabricated in, I'm just going to blow the whole thing apart and start doing my finish welding. I'm still trying to get on a time crunch to get this to the sandblaster within the next 2 weeks. I don't know if I'm going to make it. We'll find out. It might actually end up being end of December or early January that it ends up going over. We'll see. Anyways, that's just a quick update. Engine's in, sitting on its own. Looks like it was made to be there. I'm pretty happy. All right, so that wraps up part one. Like I said, that's everything that I've got done up to this point in time. I hope you enjoyed it. I am going to start working on part two. Like I said, the arms in the beginning, like I said, the arms are coming in pretty soon. And once that happens, I can get right onto the rear suspension and all the other pieces to keep the truck going. I am trying to get it into media blasting. You might have seen that mentioned a few times. So I am trying to get everything set up and done, fabricated, so I can strip it apart and get it over there and jump into reassembly, hopefully in January. Right now it's just end of November. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the plan. Hope you enjoyed it. See you guys in part two. Stay safe. Hope you have some good projects this winter. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you're working on. All right, take care.